All right. Hey, greetings, everybody. I have really special guest here with me today, Dr. Stacy, and I'm going to let her introduce herself to you all. She and I were classmates and colleagues at USC, and she's going to kind of share and explore the topic of being trauma informed and solution focused today. So, Stacy, if you would please introduce yourself to my audience and tell them a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, and how you're on the other side of my screen today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Gray. I'm gonna call you Dr. Gray. I appreciate the invite. I am Dr. Stacy Pipes Joyner. I'm here in Southern California. I am a social worker and I work for the Department of Children and Family Services here in Los Angeles County. I am in the adoptions unit. I've been in child welfare for about 11 years. My primary focus and passion in my life's work is centered around childhood trauma. That's my day job. My passion job is slash what I want to become my permanent job is I am the founder and CEO of PUSH, which stands for Preparing Us for Social Harmony, which is an in-school personal development course for high schoolers, preparing them for life outside of high school. So it gives them all the tools and resources that they need to become socially well-rounded humans. I am a domestic violence survivor myself, and I'm also a survivor of childhood trauma. And I am actually in the process of writing a book about both and how the two are interrelated. And so, yeah, I am grateful to be here and honored to talk about this very important topic. So, yeah, thanks. That's
All
me.
right. That's that's Stacy, everybody. So uh, it isn't Stacy, Dr. Stacy Pipes Joyner. It's Stacy's got pipes, and that's um, and she has a strong passion and a voice and advocacy, which is probably why you and I, um, you know, connect so well with each other because of my interest in giving kids a voice and giving, teaching kids how to have their voice because you and I are on the same page there. So,
Absolutely.
so, um, there's a paradigm shift when you are moving in an agency from being problem focused to solution focused.
Mhm.
And I have had too many experiences where people with heavy trauma, high ACEs scores, believe over time that they are the problem. And so if I stay problem focused, I get um, I'm at risk of them dragging themselves down into the mud because they're not looking at solutions. Can you talk a little bit about that paradigm shift of how we need to move from problem to solution focused?
Absolutely. I think when it comes to specifically domestic violence, it's a difficult paradigm shift for clinicians because unless you have been a victim of it yourself, it's hard to wrap your mind around why would anybody want to stay in that situation. And so that's why we as clinicians become so problem focused, is because we're trying to wrap our mind around what the problem is. And so as a victim of it, that comes across as, well, something must be wrong with me. If this person who is sitting across from me is supposed to help me, if all they can focus on is the problem versus helping me, then the problem is me. And
Mm.
so we really have to, as clinicians, kind of step away from that idea of focusing on this problem that we can't seem to wrap our minds around, because the elephant in the room, the big question is, why would anybody want to stay in that? And clinicians, it's hard to not ask that question to a victim. What made you stay? Why would you stay in that? And so it's just shift, or the shift needs to happen to, okay, this happened. I may not understand why you were in that situation or why you stayed, but I am very much invested in what can we do to not only help you now, but make sure you don't go back to it. So that's the shift that needs to happen. Let's not look at the why, because they know why. We knew why. I knew why I stayed as long as I did. That shouldn't really, I want to say matter, but it really shouldn't be the primary focus of a clinician. The why is not, because you can't understand it. So let's look at, what do we do now? We're here. Where can we go now to make sure that this doesn't happen again? What is the solution, the best solution for you?
I, having worked so many years in child abuse and family violence, I have always felt like the client really is the expert. And
Absolutely.
when I made that shift as a clinician towards solution focus, it enabled me to empower them to be the expert.
Absolutely.
Because it really, you're absolutely right. I can't wrap my brain around every one of those elephants in the room, but you're the expert. How
Right.
can I support you in your expertise to move forward?
Absolutely. And the key to that is there's two things that need to happen first and foremost right out the gate when you're talking to someone who's been a victim of domestic violence. The first thing, hear me. Hear me out. That means sit there, close your mouth, and let me speak. Let me tell my story, the who, what, where, when's, how, good, bad, and ugly. Sit there and listen. Don't
Without
interrupt
judgment.
me.
Yes.
Yes, without judgment, without anything. Just sit there and let me have your ears. That's the first thing. The second thing is after I've told you my story, I need you to believe me. I need you to believe that what I'm telling you is the truth. Regardless of how crazy it may seem to you, this is my truth. I need you to believe me. You do those two things for a DV victim, you have just made a huge paved the huge way for them to get the healing that they need. Because the one thing that we don't have is trust. Because the person that we loved, who claimed to love us, did the unthinkable to us. So that trust factor is broken. And so I need to know that you hear me and I need to know that you believe me. Give me those two things and we can go on this journey together.
Wow, that is really those great words of advice. As you were sharing that, I was thinking of a white paper I had read many years ago by Bruce Perry and Bessel van der Kolk, of course, two prominent trauma experts, childhood trauma. And in the white paper they wrote, when now they were talking about child to parent, but we can apply this to um, adult survivor to clinician. It's the same
Mhm,
comparison.
mhm,
They wrote that when a child reports to the mom or guardian that they've been hurt by their uncle or whatever, that to believe them or not sets the stage for healing or not. If a
absolutely.
mom says, "Oh, your uncle wouldn't have never have done that to you. Your uncle loves you," it sets the stage for not healing, as
Right.
opposed to just saying, "That took so much courage to share with me. Thank you." So you're absolutely right. As a clinician, if I just keep my mouth shut, if I just have my good listener ears on, and then I validate when it's over, thank you for sharing. You're right. It sets the stage for healing.
Absolutely. And then, from my own personal situation, my domestic violence situation is multi-layered because it happened while I was in leadership at a church. And my then husband was also in leadership. So I had to put on this facade every Sunday, every Wednesday that everything was great. But at home, I'm getting the crap beat out of me. Let me just be very blunt. And so when it comes to the trust factor, when it was all said and done, I had a meeting with this pastor, and my face is out to here, swollen eye. There's no denying that something happened to me. And as I was trying to share my story with this pastor, rather than give me any kind of empathy, I mean, just on the base level of empathy, I was asked point blank, what did you do to provoke him to anger? So
Again, you're the problem, right? Or you're part of
I'm the
the
problem.
problem.
Exactly, exactly. And this is coming from, a man of the church, someone that I clearly admired and looked up to, and based on the teachings of the Bible and this and that and the other, you would expect a different outcome. So it affected me on many, many, many layers. And so that trust factor that I was speaking about earlier was severed. And I was young, I was in my early 20s. I was 20, maybe 21 years old. Didn't know much about life, 2 years fresh out of high school, and I'm in a marriage, and I'm a mom now and all of this stuff. So a lot going on. This would have been a great time for him to, first of all, make sure I'm okay physically. That didn't even happen. It was literally putting the blame on me. And so I retreated inward for years, and I didn't address my trauma until I was in my early 40s. So it just shows you we have very small windows of opportunity to really make an impact on someone who's a survivor of DV. It's a small window. And if you go in there and just with the wrong attitude or the wrong mindset, you'll close them off. So yeah, tread lightly.
Tread lightly. And you mentioned something really important there. You had talked about you were expecting an empathetic response instead of what did you do?
Mhm.
And I know from that paradigm shift of moving from problem focused to solution, to truly be solution focused, you have to have genuine empathy. It can't be, oh, I'm so glad you're here today. It has to be a little more than that. It has to be genuine empathy.
Exactly.
So, what advice would you give to um, social service workers at all levels about genuine empathy and practicing it to be solution focused?
Absolutely. The first thing is to check all of your preconceived notions at the door.
Mm.
You don't know what this person's life has been like other than what they are sharing with you. And it probably goes deeper than that because it's not like we're going to come out and just be a complete open book to you. So whatever preconceived notions you have about relationships, about, maternal, paternal roles, matriarchy, patriarchy, whatever it is, check all of that at the door because you have to come in with a clean slate because you don't know that person's life. That's the first and foremost.
Perfect.
You just don't know. The next thing would be just meet them where they're at.
Mm.
A lot of times we feel uncomfortable in those truths, because they're telling you things that are painful. You think of how could anybody physically hurt someone they claim to love? Like that's a hard thing to hear as a clinician, even as a victim, a survivor of it. When I'm talking to a mother or a father who was a victim of it, it still impacts me very, very deeply because the word love is involved in all that. So how can love represent something so physically painful? So just being mindful of the conversation, read the room. I know that's a hot topic little phrase, but it's truth in that. Read the room. If the person is coming in and they're withdrawn and they're, they're scared to death still, help them unpack it on their level. That's the other thing. Don't push your agenda. Allow them to unpack it and just be there to help kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. But by all means, don't try to put the puzzle together yourself. It's
Oh,
their
yeah.
puzzle. Let them put it together. So I think just, yeah, check your preconceived notions at the door. Read the room, understand where the client is at, and just, it's okay to be human. We're clinicians, yes, but we're also human. Allow that empathy to really show to that person so they get like, okay, I think like I think this person gets me. I think they understand. They genuinely understand, and so that way they must genuinely want to help me. So that would be my advice.
I think that's really great advice. Check everything at the door, even what you think you know. I One of the things that I share with social work students, it's a trick question. When do assessments end? And the answer is they never end
They never.
because you may learn something new about this client, even if you've met with them 3 or 4 times prior, every single time you meet with them. So you have to have that empathy and that genuineness, and you have to check everything you know at the door. And it isn't about the client being manipulative or not engaging you. It is their lens, it's their view of the world, and it's their truth.
Yeah.
It's not ours. It's
No,
not mine.
no, exactly. And I, for me personally, I saw the trickle down effect of what happened from the time that happened with the pastor and moving forward. All of my relationships following that were very similar. If it wasn't physical abuse, it was some type of verbal or emotional abuse. I seemed to attract that because I felt like that was all I was worthy of getting. So because that seed was planted that I was the problem, that's what I sought out. Men in my life that would make me feel to validate that untruth that I'm the problem. So it's a lot to unpack. And I'm not saying that I'm, 1,000,000% all together, but I'm honest in my truth because it's still ongoing. I still find myself flinching, when my husband today tries to hug me, I still flinch. And it breaks his heart because he's not trying to hurt me. And I know that, but that's that trauma. It doesn't it doesn't go away. You just try to figure out a way to cope with it. And so I'm honest with him, and I explain to him that I know it is not you. I know you would never hurt me. It's just something I'm still working through. So, and I share that, in my vulnerability, and I'm more than willing to do that if it's going to help somebody out there, to know that this healing is an ongoing process, and I'll be healing from this for the rest of my life, so yeah, it's a lot.
Absolutely. And when you mention a seed, I would say problem focused those are really weeds.
Yeah.
And to be
Yeah.
solution focused, we're planting seeds of, marigolds and irises and roses. We're trying to
Yeah.
plant something that will truly be beautiful. And so we've got to dig out those weeds and not get it's tempting, right, to diagnose problems, but we got to move away from that.
Absolutely. And a great way to achieve that solution focus agenda, I think none of this is a better word than agenda, but the solution focus thing is let the client navigate that. Ask them, what does peace look like?
Oh,
When my therapist asked me that, and mind you, I remember I went to therapy in my 40s. When my therapist, who I love, hated, asked me that simple question, what does peace look like to you? I mean, I broke down because I literally had to stop and think because I had been in such turmoil mentally for so many years. I didn't know what peace looked like. So lay that foundation of what peace looks like to your client and then build from there. Make it a reality. Show them how they can make that peaceful thing that they dream of a reality. And I promise you, it'll inform your practice so much, because at the end of the day, we domestic violence survivors we want love, just like everybody. We want to be loved in a way that's real, not this false thing that we were fed as a lie in a form of control. So what does it look like?
recently I was meeting with the clinical team, and I shared a case that I had had. It's an old case, and he had always been told his problem was he had an anger management problem, and he would go to anger management therapy, and I said to him, has it worked? And he said, no, it doesn't work. And so he's giving me his lens, his view of the world, his abuse that began at age 5 and continued until he was an adult. And I said to him, what if you don't have an anger problem? What if it's about trust?
Mm.
And he said, trust. And so I taught him the story of trust. And when you mentioned, when your therapist asked about peace, your therapist was asking a solution question, not a problem focused question.
That's right.
To look at this client and just see nothing but a man with an anger management issue was just being problem driven.
Right.
The moment I gave him a tool to think about trust, it changed his paradigm. Very slowly, very difficult work,
Right.
but certainly empowering.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so with my work with the kids that I work with, that's why I'm starting this now, because I'm so passionate in that they don't bring this trauma mindset into their adult life. Oh, how I wish I had that. If I can do something, if I could plant a seed of hope in them now, that is going to literally change their lives moving forward. And so it is so important that as clinicians that we keep the human aspect of our work at the forefront. Let's be human. Let's go ahead.
No, finish, please.
I was gonna say, and just if we do that, it keeps our own judgments and prejudices and preconceived notions out the picture, because we are all human. We are not perfect. We've made many mistakes in our lives that we've regretted, but let's learn from those. And if we can apply that mindset of I'm not perfect into our own practice with the people we serve, oh man, it'll make a huge difference.
I think that's an excellent spot for us to conclude. And I think you couldn't have summed it up better. To be solution focused is to plant seeds of hope.
Absolutely.
I think that is the metaphor I want to go out on. And I hope everybody listening to Dr. Stacy thinks about that metaphor, planting seeds of hope to be solution focused and digging out the weeds. I just think that's a perfect way to conclude. Thank you so much, Dr. Stacy. You are a blessing. It's too bad you're too far away in California. They need you there, please. But thank you for your wisdom here in Kansas City. Thank you so
Of
much.
course. Thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.